turn. Talking about, some of you have mentioned about the presence of God, just our worship. Of course, as I said last night, our kids are the worship leaders, and we've been blessed through the years to, draw people that are willing to serve in the ministry. And we've always, from the very beginning, because I've been a worship leader all my life, always valued worship. And we've always been a church that has had good worship. But it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, when we first actually got connected with Intercessors for America. They were sponsoring a conference on community transformation. And it caught my eye. I was actually the administrative assistant for a number of years, and I told Bobby, we need to tell someone to go to that, because it really looks like there's something there. And we could not find anybody, A week before, I just felt in my spirit, I think we need to go. Long story short, that time there at that conference, and it was just a small gathering of people there at IFA, where we heard the message of presence-based community transformation, the manifest presence of God. It changed everything for us. If you know George Otis Jr., the transformation documentaries, if you've seen any of them, where entire communities, even nations, are transformed because of the tangible presence of God. We began to just pursue this, and we had some training from George Otis and from IFA, and we really caught this in our hearts. We just felt like the Lord was calling us to a whole new level in the church. And Bobby shared with you this morning of his decision as a pastor to be presence-based, that we wanted the presence of God, that was why we meet. Even in a corporate gathering, is that more than anything, we want the presence of God here. And again, for a pastor, that is a challenge, because we even had an earlier conversation about the gifts of the Spirit. And, as prophetic people, we want to see the gifts of the Spirit all the time. But for pastors, what they're thinking about is, how do I facilitate that? Because they don't have that grace in the same measure as to what to do with all that. And the fact is, once you open the door to the Spirit like that, you're opening the door to everything. And you have to be prepared for what's going to go through that. So we had to journey through that, and pastors really have to deal with that as well. Okay, am I ready? Are we ready as an elder team to give correction? Do we know how? How's it going to look? Because we want it to be healthy. So anyway, we had to process through all that, and we felt called of the Lord that this was so critical that our entire church and our entire community, we wanted them to catch this vision. So we called for a community-wide 21-day fast. And we had some people come in to help us with it. And this place was packed. We squeezed 375 people in this place. They were out in the lobby, they were in the kitchen, they were down the hall. That was the hunger that was in this region for a move of God. And so,
It was 5 churches.
What?
5 churches.
It was 5, you're right. It was 5 churches that had come together, because at this time we were partnering with some other pastors in the community. And so that's actually a lot of what called people together. They saw the pastors working together. And they thought, wow, if they're getting together, something must be happening. And so they all came. Every night we met. We had a devotional that we went through. Everyone was supposed to read it at home, because our focus was, this has to be in your home first, inviting the presence of God. We did a study from Scripture, what that means, the tangible presence of God. And our prayer was that everyone would experience that personally in their own home. Because you can't have a vision for the community if you yourself haven't been impacted. If you haven't been changed and transformed, you're not going to know how to pray. So we had the devotional. Everyone would go through it at home during the day or at supper. And then every night we met here, we did soaking. We did a song or two to open. And then we just did instrumental music for like 15, 20 minutes. And we just sat and waited. That alone was a huge shift. Because you're not used to downtime in church. This place was packed. And it just had instrument, and we're just listening to the Lord. And then we had a microphone facing the cross. And basically, every night it was a different focus of, we were cleaning out our hearts. And people were invited to come and to speak to the Lord. They weren't confessing to each other, they were confessing to the Lord. And it was just a very powerful time, and we detail it in the book that we've written. But that experience so transformed the individuals and the families. It set our whole congregation on a different course, because we experienced it. The presence of God was so strong. Even little kids would come up to the cross and they would just start crying, just weeping, saying, I want Jesus. It was real. Their parents were not coaching them. You'd see people that would walk up. I felt it myself. We really determined there was an angel called Grace that met you there, because the first time I went up, I was trying to think of how I could be composed and say things in a way that would, come across all right. And I get there, I melt. I meet Grace. And it was just so powerful how it changed us. And so that experience really marked us. And I would encourage that if this is a vision that you have for your house or your community, the presence of God, pray. It might not have to be a 21-day fast, but you got to catch it at home. We actually did another one, I think the following year, and we actually, Bobby and I, we wrote a book ourselves. We wrote our own devotion. That's the one that's out back, Making Room for His Presence, 21-day community fast devotional guide. And it was, again, it actually went deeper the second time. It wasn't as big a crowd, but it really set the tone for us.